Hey, today I'm going to show you how to replace your valve cover gasket, which is right up under here. It's the gasket that runs around on top of the valve. This is on an E46 2004 ZHP, and it has 163,000 miles on it. This is the first gasket replacement for the valve cover. These typically leak on the BMWs definitely around 100,000 miles. A symptom is that you could smell oil through your filtration system, or you may see some oil coming around from areas around the gasket itself, or more importantly, even down, there's a rail in the back here that fuel or oil will run down onto. So, to begin, what we're going to need to do is remove the air filter. And there's 3 tabs here, and they just turn 90 degrees and unclip. And then this slides out, and you have access to your cabin air filter, and that as well just slides out. The next item is you'll want to remove this cover for the wires that cross over the top of the engine. And there's just little tabs here, there's 4 of them across the top, a little pressure will unclip them. Then you push it down and you pull your wires out from there. And this little piece will fall off on the bottom because it's just held in there with a clip as well. The next thing, you'll want to remove the air filter housing assembly. That's this entire piece here, and it's held in place by T30 Torx screws. There's 4 of them, one at this location, one here, another here, and another over here. Removal of this just requires the T30 Torx, which looks like a little star, and available at most auto parts stores. Close-up of their positions in relation. So there's your first one, your second, your third, and then finally your fourth. Now let's remove the air filter assembly. Once you've removed the 4 T30 Torx, you just simply lift up and pull out, and the entire assembly will come out from the vehicle. Now you have full access to the entire length of your valve cover, and it's easier to get your ratchets on it to loosen the screws and the bolts. The next thing you're going to want to do is remove the little protective plastic pieces so you can access the bolts to remove these plastic covers. These simply pry up by inserting a little screwdriver down into the slot and prying and losing it down in the engine bay. But that's what reach tools are for. So as you notice, sometimes the clips will break, and mine have been broken for quite a while. So it's time to get some new ones. So I have ordered some new ones. Next, using a 10mm socket, you're going to remove the 4 bolts, 2 that cover the fuel rail, and that just lifts up and off. The 2 here are just nuts, and they cover the spark plugs. You have to remove oil fill-in cap, and then this cover just merely lifts up. Now, you'll notice on the inside of the cover, there are 4 little rubber protectors, and if you want to order those new when you're doing a valve cover job, go ahead and do that. They're just like $1 a piece, so they're not expensive at all. And if your car has high mileage on it, it's a good thing to do. Another thing, there's a rubber seal inside here that surrounds the oil cap, and you can replace it as well. The next item is to remove the 4 coils, and on this model engine you just merely lift up on the connectors and then slide them out. And so once that connector is lifted up and the electrical connector is removed from it, you merely just put your finger in the hole and pull out with some force and release your coil. Now these need to go back in the same order, in the same position. So a good thing to do is just go ahead and take a little magic marker and write on there what coil it came out of. You can write it anywhere on here. You know, and you have 6, so you'll go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all the way back, and just make sure you keep them in the same order as you took them out. Once you have that out, all of your coils out, you'll need to remove the 2 grounding wires. You have one right here, and then you have another over here. That's in between position 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5. And then after that, you're going to remove the 4 screws or nuts, one at each end, one underneath the grounding position at 4 and 5, another at position 2 and 3, and then another one here. Also, you'll have some wire that runs around and clamps into little grooves around the valve cover gasket. You'll need to just pull them out from those grooves so that you have room to work. And as you can see, there's some of it right there. The 2 grounding straps remove with 8mm. And while you're removing all of these nuts and bolts from this, you'll want to be very careful that you do not drop anything down into the spark plug holes. After those are removed, they simply slide off. Next, using a 10mm, you'll want to remove the 4 nuts that are bolting down the center of the valve cover. Now each of these nuts that you have to pull off the center here, there's 4 of them, remember, they have a washer that comes with them. So you want to make sure that you get both items. And this is what they look like. Another item you'll want to disconnect is this breather hose going into the side of the valve cover. You squeeze these 2 tabs together and then pull it off. And you don't have to bend it back or anything. It is brittle and can break, so I would just get it slid off and leave it at that. The next thing you have to do is remove all of the valve cover bolts. Now if I counted correctly, I counted 11 of these bolts going around the circumference here. Some of them are easier than others to get to. Now each of these valve cover screws come with 3 pieces. You have the screw itself that you're taking off, and then a metal washer, and then you have a rubber washer. Now when you're taking them off, I like to keep them together and take it off as a whole unit, because you don't want to lose a washer down in your engine anywhere. Now the valve cover is difficult to get off at first, but what you do is you insert a screwdriver, a fat flathead, and get yourself some leverage just up under the edge here, back in as far as you can go without damaging the gasket. but it does take a little effort. Once you get it going though, you just slightly get pressure all around and eventually it unseats itself and you can pull it out. Okay, this is the hard part, is removing the electrical line here. What happens is you have some little tabs down here. You don't need to remove this cover. I had originally started to try to do that and found out quickly that that's not the best route to go. So what you really need to do, you'll see tabs along the top here, and you just need to sort of pry up against them and push away from it for the whole unit. Push it back and then it'll slide out of place, and you just work your way down. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them to work your way out of. And what they look like is this right here. It just sort of presses into a little indentation. Now that you have your valve cover off, you'll want to go around all of the perimeters and clean it off really well. Wipe it down, make sure there's no gasket left there, and as you're pulling off the gasket, make sure it doesn't break and any of the pieces fall down into the engine. And then also here you'll have a little rubber piece that goes around the spark plugs and seals those holes. And if you're lucky, it's not brittle. Mine was partially brittle, but basically if you just take and sort of push inwards on it, then you can break the seal of it and slowly get it lifted up. And there's 3 pieces, and you just very carefully want to get the entire thing lifted up and off of over the spark plugs. And there's 2 of these. There's one right behind it, and it's either on the inside of your valve cover or they're still sticking there. And once it's off, that's what it looks like, and then you can discard it and you'll put on a new one. After, of course, you clean up everywhere the valve cover gasket sits, and these you'll want to make sure all the metal on both the block as well as on the plastic valve cover, you'll want to make sure all of those surfaces are clean and smooth. So now that you've begun cleaning the flat edge where the gasket sits, everything should look shiny, you know, without any glue on it or anything at all, and should be clean. You can take an alcohol swab or you can take fingernail polish remover and just run around the edge. That'll help get off any other part of gasket. Just again, make sure that you don't lose any gasket pieces, no matter how small, down into the center of the engine there. You'll also want to just make sure that it's very well cleaned and then has a smooth flat surface. If you feel any imperfections on it, that's a possible point of a leak. You want to only do this about once every 100,000 miles if possible, so this is an integral part of the job. Do it right, the gasket should last you a long time, as long as you reinstall it correctly and have flat mating surfaces. The next item you'll want to focus on is cleaning the valve cover itself. So you clean in where all the gaskets are going to go, in all these holes, and then on the edge and down on the inside around the entire perimeter of the valve cover. Once you have all those clean, then you can seat the valve cover gasket down onto this valve cover before you reinstall. Now, I've gone ahead and cleaned mine out. So you'll need the valve cover kit, and it comes with all the gaskets you'll need for your valve cover. So the very first thing I'm going to put in are the 2 gaskets that go around the spark plugs. They're both exactly the same gasket, so they only fit in one way. So we just go ahead and place them over their positions. And then just press down and make sure they're fully seated. And repeat for the other side. Next, you have your main valve cover gasket. And as you can see, one end has 2 of the half circles on it. It can only go on one way. And you also find at the center of the other end, there is a center hole piece, and that's the only bolt that goes onto the center of one of the ends. So you just start at one of your corners, just follow it all the way around and make sure that it seats as you go. And once you get it fully seated, then you can come back and press it in further. You're not wanting to stretch it, you're just wanting it to align with each of the holes. So now that we're fully seated, we're ready to go ahead and prep the remainder of the cylinder head, or the valve cover head, so that we can mount this and have no leaks once we get it in. Now before we replace the valve cover, the next thing we'll want to do is prep the valve assembly itself with some RTV sealant. And you could just use the Ultra Black Maximum Wall Resistance RTV silicone. And what you want to do is there's very few places that you actually want to use this, because these are a pressure fit gasket. So the pressure of the nuts and bolts holding down the gasket will create enough compression to flatten it out and create a good seal. However, there are some weak points. And on every engine, no matter what engine you're doing, the weak points are always where there are corners or where there are two separate pieces of metal instead of a single formed metal that are connected together. So on the BMW engines, for example, you have the Vanos unit. And the Vanos unit is right here, but it's separated. So what you'll need to do is put a line of silicone here. It doesn't have to be real thick, just enough to seal the crevice there. The other portion that you'll want to do is on the corners of any semicircular surfaces. So it's a lot easier for the gasket to seal these rounded surfaces and the flat surfaces, but it may not always seal a corner. So you'll want to put a little dab right across the very top edge, and then right across the very leading on around, and just down on the corner. That way you get a good proper seal whenever you put the gasket down. Now on the BMW, there are actually 4 semicircular positions. The front 2 are here at the Vanos, and then there are 2 in the rear as well that you'll have to do the same thing to. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the front, 4 on the back, and then both sides where the Vanos unit connects together to the block of the engine here. And that's it. Once you have all that in place, let it sit and set up for about 5, maybe 10 minutes. Come back and then place your valve cover on. So I've now applied the sealant in the locations, and you see it's just a very thin layer, and then just a little dab on the corners. You have another little dab on the other side, just a little bit there, and then towards the rear of the engine there are 2 positions that also require just a little bit on the corners. So the next item we have is to go ahead and put the bolts back on the valve cover. So these are the center bolts, and they have a washer and then a rubber grommet just like the rest. And the smaller edge goes downwards, and that's what creates the seal. So you want to make sure the thick flat edge is on the and the washer meet. So just go ahead and put it down like that. Prep all of your 4 screws, and then put them back in. And they're going to go back in the center positions. I like to start on the inside and then work to the outside. So there's 4 of these total for the inside. And for now, I'll just get them a little bit hand tight, and then I'll leave them at that, and we'll come back once we have all bolts in place, and we'll start applying proper torque values. So now the 4 center ones are in place, so that should leave you with 11 bolts, 11 washers, and 11 of the rubber grommets. Now next we're going to start torquing down the individual bolts. So now that you got your valve cover on and you have your bolts threaded on to where they're pretty much hand tight, you're going to ratchet it, and if you feel comfortable you can ratchet it until you have resistance and you can feel the bolt seat. Otherwise, go ahead and start using your torque wrench, and you're going to set it for 89 inch pounds, not foot pounds, inch pounds. And you're going to make sure that each one of them is torqued all the way around. Remember, there's 11 around the outer edge, and then there's 4 in the center for a total of 15. You're going to reconnect this pipe right here just by pushing it back onto the valve cover. And now we just need to reinstall the plug line, which is your electrical connection. I'm not sure what it's called, but your ignition rail. So we'll get that cleaned up and get it back installed. Now don't forget that you have the wires here that you had taken out and rerouted. And they just need to be routed back around and back up under the retaining clips. And these go to your, I believe they're part of your emission systems, but you'll see the gray cable and then another black cable. And there is a groove in the valve cover head itself that these slide down into, and it's held in place there. And then there's 2 clips on the side. Now what I wanted to show you is there's 2 metal clips that hold on the wire, and they just lift up like that, and the wire slides up under them, so you can just pull them up. They're very easy. So now we're ready to put the electronics back in for the spark plug ignition coils, and this just comes back up under here and it clips back into these retaining areas, and you'll clearly see them. And you just push it back down into place. And there it is, it's back in. Now, that leaves us with our ground straps. So if you remember, we have 2 ground straps on this engine. There is one in between 2 and 3, and then there's another in between 4 and 5. You should have 2 little nuts that fit on the top here. So your grounding straps are an 8mm nut. I wouldn't torque them more than maybe 40 or 50 inch-pounds, just barely. So next we have our coils that we took out earlier, and you should have numbered them. So I know that this one's 3. We can just slide it down. While we're here, may as well put the connector in place for number 3, and it just snaps in. Then you push it down, it's connected. And there's no particular order to install, just as long as you have them where they came out of. So this is a simple part. We just make sure that this cover doesn't pinch any wires, and it goes back on over the 2 exposed screw heads. And using a 10mm. And you don't want to make these super tight. These just need to go on, and once they seat, just give them a slight additional turn, and that'll be enough. Next, you install your fuel rail cover. And there's some hooks that just slides up under this piece right here, fuel rail. And you'll see the exposed holes. And you use 10mm bolts. And just like the other one, you put them in, and you do not use a lot of pressure when they seat. That should be good enough.